Since the 1940s, only 7 men have dared to chase the ultimate water speed record. 5 of them didn't live to tell the tale. With a fatality rate of over 70%, this pursuit isn't just about speed, it's a deadly obsession. But here's the real question: how far are today's thrill seekers willing to go before tragedy strikes again? Since humans first set sail on open waters, the desire to go faster has always been there. Early watercraft were simple vessels, primarily designed for survival, transport, or fishing. But as technology advanced, we began to see an obsession emerge: to not just travel on water, but to conquer it, to push the boundaries of speed. The idea of going faster than anyone ever had became a fascination. Boats were no longer just about getting from one place to another, they became vehicles for breaking records. In the early days of speed racing, watercraft had what's called a single keel, which gave them stability but limited how fast they could go. Boats cutting through water faced tremendous resistance, slowing them down. This is where the innovation of hydroplanes changed everything. Unlike traditional boats that plowed through water, hydroplanes were designed to glide across the surface, dramatically reducing drag. Imagine skimming a rock across a lake. Hydroplanes do something similar, skipping across the water at high speeds rather than slicing through it. The introduction of jet engines revolutionized speed on water, taking the game to a whole new level. Originally designed for planes, jet engines allowed boats to reach insane speeds. What made them so powerful is that instead of using propellers to cut through the water, jet engines use pure thrust to push the boats forward. This is where things started to get dangerous. Boats were no longer limited by water resistance alone. They were essentially transformed into waterborne fighter jets. However, water speed racing faces a unique set of challenges that makes it entirely different from land speed records. On land, racers use salt flats or smooth desert surfaces, which remain largely consistent, but water is constantly moving. A lake that looks calm in one moment can become treacherous the next. Wind, waves, and even the slightest shift in the environment can turn a perfect race into a nightmare. Water is about 800 times denser than air, creating a lot of drag. Overcoming this resistance is no easy task. The faster a boat goes, the more it has to fight against this dense force, making stability an even bigger issue. Hydroplanes were created to reduce drag, but at the cost of making the boat incredibly unstable. At speeds over 200 miles per hour, even the slightest shift in angle can send a boat flipping end over end or crashing into the water with fatal consequences. Water speed racing is, without a doubt, one of the most brutal and unpredictable sports in existence. If you think land speed racing is dangerous, it has nothing on the perils faced when you're flying across the water at over 300 miles per hour. The surface of the water is never still, and the very nature of water makes it almost impossible to control a boat once something goes wrong. Wind can pick up suddenly, a small wave can disrupt the balance, and all it takes is a split second for catastrophe to strike. Each official water speed record attempt involves covering a 1-kilometer course in both directions, and the final speed is calculated by averaging the 2 runs. The catch is, you have only 60 minutes to complete both runs. It sounds straightforward, but it's anything but. In reality, racing on water at these speeds is utterly terrifying. Water conditions change in the blink of an eye, and the racers must deal with an unpredictable environment. Wind gusts can come out of nowhere, and waves can suddenly form, turning calm waters into a deadly battlefield. The racers not only have to navigate these challenges, but they must also rely on perfect timing, precision, and extreme bravery. Water, unlike land, is a constantly shifting surface. At the high speeds needed to break records, water is no longer a liquid, at least not in the way we think of it. Traveling over 200 miles per hour turns water into something as hard as concrete. Any error in judgment can be fatal, and once a boat loses stability, there's no room for recovery. The moment a hydroplane gets even 1 degree off balance, it can flip, and at those speeds, survival is nearly impossible. The combination of jet engine thrust and the instability of hydroplanes means that you're practically flirting with death every second you're out there. When it comes to the water speed record, the toll it has taken on human life is nothing short of devastating. Out of the 7 brave men who've attempted to break this record, 5 of them never made it back alive. It's one of the deadliest pursuits in the world, and those who chase it are fully aware of the slim margin for error that comes with racing at such high speeds. When you're pushing a boat beyond 300 miles per hour on water, even the smallest mistake can lead to fatal consequences. Controlling a hydroplane at those speeds is a task few have dared dared to try, and even fewer have survived. The difficulty lies in the sheer unpredictability of water at those speeds. When you're moving that fast, water starts to behave more like a solid than a liquid. Hydroplanes, designed to skim across the surface to reduce drag, are also extremely unstable. Just the slightest tilt, a shift in angle by even a fraction of a degree, and the boat can go from skimming the water to flipping through the air in an instant. The forces at play are unimaginable, and once control is lost, there's almost no chance of recovery. This tragic trend began in 1930 with Sir Henry Seagrave, who was attempting to break his record. His boat flipped violently while traveling over 100 miles per hour, killing him and his mechanic. It was a shocking loss that set the tone for what would follow in the decades to come. In the 1950s, John Cobb made his attempt to hit 200 miles per hour. He succeeded, but the victory was short-lived. His boat disintegrated at 210 miles per hour, sending Cobb crashing into the water. The boat couldn't handle the intense forces at that speed, and Cobb lost his life in the wreck. A few years later, Italian driver Mario Verga tried to push the record even further. He was aiming for 190 miles per hour when tragedy struck. Like those before him, Verga's boat flipped during the attempt, and he too paid the ultimate price. By the time people started pushing the limits to 300 miles per hour, it had become clear that this wasn't just a dangerous pursuit, it was borderline suicidal. The allure of breaking the record, however, never seemed to fade, no matter how many lives were lost in the process. One of the most famous and heartbreaking stories from water speed racing is the tragedy of Donald Campbell. Campbell was one of the few men brave enough, or maybe reckless enough, to attempt breaking the 300 mile per hour barrier. He piloted the legendary Bluebird K7, a hydroplane boat originally designed to reach speeds of 200 miles per hour. As technology advanced, Campbell upgraded the Bluebird with a more powerful jet engine, giving him the thrust he needed to aim for 300 miles per hour and beyond. In 1967, Campbell made his first run and clocked in at an impressive 295 miles per hour. Everything seemed to be going according to plan, but then came the decision that would cost him his life. Instead of waiting for calmer conditions for the return run, Campbell decided to go for it immediately. It was a fatal choice. As the Bluebird hit 318 miles per hour on the second run, the boat became unstable, flipped, and crashed into the water. Campbell was killed instantly. The violent forces of the crash left no chance of survival. Ken Warby's story is the kind that defies all expectations. In a world where water speed record chasers were typically wealthy daredevils backed by large teams and sponsors, Warby was different. He didn't have millions to spend on cutting-edge technology or a team of engineers at his disposal. Instead, Warby was a self-taught boat builder who had a dream to be the fastest man on water, and he wasn't gonna let anything stop him. In the 1970s, while other racers were meeting tragic ends in their high-powered boats, Warby was working away in his backyard in Australia, building a boat with his own hands. With just $10,000 from his pocket and 3 surplus jet engines, Warby crafted the Spirit of Australia. It wasn't some high-tech machine developed in a lab, it was a labor of love, put together with passion and sheer determination. His approach was simple but effective. He focused on reducing drag, and his knowledge of how hydroplanes work paid off. In 1977, Warby made his first major attempt, reaching over 300 miles per hour on water and living to tell the tale, something that very few could claim at the time. But he wasn't done yet. In 1978, Warby set out to break his record. Racing on Blowering Dam, he hit a staggering 317.7 miles per hour. It wasn't just a victory, it was a groundbreaking achievement. Warby became the fastest man on water, and what's even more remarkable is that he did it with a boat he built himself. More than 45 years later, that record still stands. Despite the technological advances that have been made since then, no one has managed to surpass Warby's feat. His story isn't just about speed, it's about grit, determination, and the belief that anything is possible if you're willing to put in the work. Warby defied the odds, and in doing so, he cemented his place in history as one of the greatest water speed racers of all time. After Ken Warby's incredible feat, the water speed record became an even more tempting target for those seeking glory. But as history has shown, chasing this record often comes at a heavy price. While Warby survived his attempt, the men who followed him weren't as lucky. Technological advancements and more powerful boats only seemed to increase the danger, as 2 more attempts in the following decade ended in tragedy. In 1980, Lee Taylor, a former water speed record holder, attempted to break Warby's record with a rocket-powered boat. The boat boat designed to reach speeds of over 500 miles per hour seemed like it could be the game changer that would finally dethrone Warby's long-standing record. However, during a practice run, Taylor's boat hit a wave at high speed, tearing it apart. Taylor was thrown from the wreckage and lost his life. His death highlighted just how unpredictable and lethal water speed racing had become, especially at those extreme speeds. 9 years later, in 1989, Craig Arfins made his attempt. His boat was equipped with cutting-edge technology designed to handle the immense forces at speeds above 300 miles per hour. Yet despite all the advancements, the risks remained the same. During his run, Arfins lost control of his boat at 370 miles per hour, and like Taylor before him, he didn't survive the crash. His boat flipped violently through the air, marking yet another fatality in the pursuit of the water speed record. The sport remains as deadly as ever, and even though boats have become more advanced, the forces of nature are impossible to fully control. The water speed record is a pursuit that demands not just skill and bravery, but a willingness to face death head-on. Despite the deadly history of the water speed record, the thirst for speed has not faded. A new generation of thrill seekers has emerged, determined to break Ken Warby's 45-year-old record. Advances in engineering, jet engines, and boat design have made today's hydroplanes faster and, in theory, safer. But with water speed racing, safety is always relative. Even with modern technology, the risks are just as high, and one wrong move could mean disaster. Warby Motorsports, led by Ken Warby's son, is one of the teams currently working to break the long-standing record. They've designed the Spirit of Australia 2, a new and improved version of the boat that took Ken Warby into the history books. This modern hydroplane is equipped with a jet engine that produces 50% more thrust than its predecessor, and it's already been put to the test in practice runs. The boat has reached speeds of 265 miles per hour, but they're aiming for more, a target of 340 miles per hour. It's a bold attempt, and the team is confident that they can write a new chapter in water speed racing history. But they're not the only ones in the race. Another team, known as Thrust WSH, has also thrown their hat into the ring. Thrust WSH may sound familiar as they hold the current land speed record with their vehicle Thrust SSC, which broke the sound barrier in 1997 by reaching a jaw-dropping 763 miles per hour. Now they're taking their expertise to the water. Water, after all, is an unpredictable force, and while modern engineering has improved the boats, the dangers are as real as ever. The pursuit of the water speed record is not for the faint of heart. It's a deadly challenge that has claimed many lives, but for these new daredevils, the reward is worth the risk. The race to be the fastest on water is far from over, and history may soon be rewritten once again. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.